Hi, my name is Alison Lawson. I am 22 years old and I live in Delmare. The flame was small and blue, but it ate the paper fast. I sat there, completely still, watching my college diploma turn into black ash right on the fancy restaurant table. My father, Marcus, didn't even blink. He held the burning corner with steady fingers, letting the smoke curl up toward the expensive chandelier above us. "This is what you are worth to this family, Alison," he said. His voice was calm. It was the same voice he used to tell me I wasn't smart enough or pretty enough or good enough. My mother, Elaine, didn't look at the fire. She looked at me with cold, hard eyes. "You are being selfish," she whispered. "Vanessa needs that money. You have a degree, you can work, sign the paper." Beside her, my younger sister Vanessa just smirked, checking her reflection in her spoon. They thought this was the end. They thought burning my achievement would break me. They expected tears. They expected me to beg for forgiveness and sign over Grandpa's inheritance. But I didn't cry. For the first time in 22 years, my eyes were dry. I stood up, smoothed my dress, and smiled. They had no idea what was going to happen next week. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Alison Lawson. I am 22 years old. To understand why I didn't cry when my father burned my diploma, you have to understand how I grew up. You have to understand the house in Delmare. It was a beautiful house. It had white pillars in the front and a big lawn that was always cut perfectly green. From the outside, we looked like the perfect American family. We had the nice cars, the holiday cards, the smiling photos on the mantelpiece. But inside, there was a very clear line drawn down the middle of our lives. On one side of the line was Vanessa. On the other side was me. I was 2 years older than Vanessa. In a normal family, the oldest child usually gets the attention first. But in the Lawson house, Vanessa was the sun, and I was just the shadow that got cast behind her. It started when we were very small. Vanessa was loud. She had bright curly hair and a laugh that made strangers stop and smile. My mother, Elaine, loved that attention. She treated Vanessa like a living doll. She bought her frilly dresses and signed her up for dance classes, pageant training, and acting workshops. I was different. I was quiet. I had straight, plain hair. I liked to read. I didn't like to perform for strangers. My mother didn't know what to do with a child who didn't want to be on a stage, so she mostly ignored me. I remember one specific Saturday when I was 10 years old. It was the day of my science fair. I had worked for 3 weeks on a project about plant growth. I was so proud of it. I had made charts and graphs. I woke up early, put on my best shirt, and sat at the kitchen table waiting for my parents. "Mom, Dad, we have to go soon," I said. "The judging starts at 9. My mother was rushing around the kitchen, holding a curling iron. She didn't even look at me. "Not now, Alison. Vanessa has her tap recital dress rehearsal. The zipper is stuck." "But the science fair," I said. My voice was small. My father, Marcus, looked up from his coffee. He looked annoyed. "Alison, stop pestering your mother. Can't you see we are busy? We can't be in 2 places at once." "But you promised," I whispered. "Don't be selfish," my mother snapped. "Vanessa needs us. Her teacher said she has a real shot at the solo this year. You can catch a ride with the neighbor, Mrs. Gable." And that was it. They left with Vanessa. They took the video camera. They took the excitement. I rode in the back of Mrs. Gable's minivan, smelling like her wet dog, holding my poster board on my lap. I won 2nd place that day. When I got home, the house was empty. They had taken Vanessa out for ice cream to celebrate her rehearsal. When they finally came home, they didn't ask about my ribbon. They just talked about how Vanessa's tap shoes sparkled under the lights. That was my life. I learned to be small. I learned that my achievements didn't matter because they weren't the right kind of achievements. I got straight A's, but Vanessa got the lead in the school play. My parents threw a party for the play. They didn't even put my report card on the fridge. I became the invisible daughter. I was the one they forgot unless they needed something. "Alison, help Vanessa with her math homework, she's crying." "Alison, did you fold the laundry? Vanessa needs her lucky socks." "Alison, stay in your room, we have guests and Vanessa is singing for them." I stopped asking for things. I stopped expecting birthday parties. I stopped trying to show them my art or my grades. I just existed. I kept my head down. I survived by hiding in plain sight. My only anchor, the only person who actually saw me, was Grandpa Lawson, my father's father. He was a hard man. He had built a construction business from nothing. He was rich, but he didn't act like my parents. My parents liked to spend money to show off. Grandpa liked to save money to build power. He didn't like noise. He didn't like showing off. He lived in a large estate about 30 minutes away. On Sundays, we had to go there for dinner. My parents hated it because Grandpa was strict, but they went because they wanted his money. They made Vanessa wear her prettiest dresses. They told her to hug him and sing for him. "Go on, Nessie," my father would say. "Show Grandpa your new dance." Vanessa would dance around the living room, loud and flashy. My parents would clap. Grandpa would just sit in his big leather chair, holding a glass of whiskey, watching them with a flat expression. He never clapped. He just watched. One Sunday, when I was 16, I went into his library to get away from the noise. Vanessa was singing in the living room, screeching out a pop song. I couldn't take it. I sat on the floor in the library, reading a book about contract law I had pulled off the shelf. I didn't think I would understand it, but I liked the logic of it. The door opened. Grandpa walked in with his cane. I froze. I thought he would yell at me for being in there. "What are you reading?" he asked. His voice was rough like gravel. "A book about contracts," I said. He raised a thick white eyebrow. "Why?" "Because it makes sense," I said honestly. "The rules are written down. If you follow the rules, you know what happens. It's not like, out there." I pointed toward the living room door. Grandpa walked over and sat in the chair opposite me. He looked at me for a long time. It was the first time an adult in my family had really looked at me. "You don't like the show Out There," he stated. "No, sir," I said. "Good," he grunted. "Neither do I. It's all noise. Noise doesn't build buildings, Alison. Foundation does." From that day on, Sunday became my school. While my parents and Vanessa sat in the living room watching TV or talking about expensive vacations, I sat in the library with Grandpa. He didn't treat me like a child. He treated me like a student. He taught me how to read a balance sheet. He taught me how to spot a lie in a legal document. He taught me the value of silence. "Look at your father," Grandpa told me once. "He talks all the time. He tells everyone his plans. That is why he is weak. He needs applause." He tapped the desk with his finger. "You are quiet, Alison. People underestimate the quiet ones. They think you're stupid or weak. Let them think that. While they are talking, you are listening. While they are bragging, you are planning." "Silence," he said, looking me right in the eyes, "is a strategy. It is not surrender." I held on to those words like a lifeline. When my mother forgot to pick me up from band practice, I didn't cry. I used the silence. I walked home and thought about my future. When my father gave Vanessa a new car for her 17th birthday and gave me a $50 gift card, I didn't scream. I used the silence. I saved the card. I saved every penny I could find. I realized that my family was a sinking ship. My parents spent money faster than they made it. They spoiled Vanessa so much she couldn't even make her own toast without help. They were loud, messy, and careless. Grandpa saw it too, but he never said anything to them. He just watched. And he taught me. When he died during my junior year of college, I was devastated. I was the only one who really cried at the funeral. My mother cried, but she was checking her makeup in her compact mirror every 5 minutes. Vanessa cried, but she made sure she was standing in the center of the room so everyone could comfort her. My father didn't cry. He just looked impatient, like he was waiting for the will reading. But there was no will reading. The lawyer, Mr. Dalton, said Grandpa had set up a complex trust and nothing would be revealed until I graduated college. My parents were furious. They screamed at the lawyer. They said it was ridiculous, but they couldn't do anything. They had to wait. So they waited, and they tolerated me. They paid for my college tuition, but only because they thought it would look bad if they didn't. I went to a state university, studied business and law, and kept my head down. I worked 2 jobs on campus, so I didn't have to ask them for spending money. I studied in the library until midnight. I became exactly what Grandpa taught me to be, quiet, efficient, and observant. I knew my parents didn't love me. I accepted that fact like I accepted the weather. It was just a cold reality. But I didn't know how far they would go. I didn't know that my graduation wasn't a celebration for them. It was a deadline. They were waiting for me to finish so they could get what they really wanted. They wanted Grandpa's money, and they were about to show me exactly what they were willing to do to get it. The restaurant was called the Gilded Lily. It was the kind of place my parents loved. Lots of gold mirrors, velvet chairs, and waiters who looked down on you if you didn't order the most expensive wine. It was my college graduation night. I had walked across the stage that morning. I had shaken the dean's hand. I had earned my degree in business administration with honors. summa cum laude. My parents had been there, but they sat in the back. They arrived late and left early to beat the traffic. Vanessa didn't come at all. She said she had a migraine, but I saw on her Instagram story that she was at a pool party. Now, we were at dinner, just the four of us. The table was small and round. I sat across from Vanessa. My parents sat on the sides. The atmosphere was stiff. It felt rehearsed. My mother was smiling too much. It was a tight, plastic smile that didn't reach her eyes. She was wearing a new diamond necklace that caught the light. "So," my father said, opening the menu, "you're finally done with school, good." "Yes," I said. "It feels good to be finished." "Now the real world starts," he said dismissively. "No more hiding in books." "I have a job interview next week," I mentioned, "with a logistics firm in San Jose." My mother waved her hand in the air, dismissing my words like they were a fly. "Oh, Alison, don't be silly. You don't need to worry about working just yet. We have family matters to discuss." "Family matters?" I asked. Vanessa looked up from her phone. She looked bored, but there was a little glint in her eye, a secret. She was tapping her long, manicured nails on the tablecloth. Tap, tap, tap. "Let's order first," my father said. The dinner was agonizing. My mother talked about the neighbors and who was getting divorced. My father complained about the valet parking. Vanessa complained that the salmon was too dry. No one asked me about my classes. No one asked me about my degree. No one asked me what I wanted to do with my life. I ate my food quietly. I cut my chicken into small, perfect squares. I remembered Grandpa's voice. "Silence is a strategy." I waited. I knew something was coming. I could feel it in the way my father kept checking his watch. I could feel it in the way my mother kept refilling her wine glass. Finally, the waiter cleared the plates. He asked if we wanted dessert. "No," my father said sharply. "Bring us the check later. We need a moment." The waiter nodded and left. The table went quiet. My father reached under his chair and pulled out a leather briefcase. He set it on the table. It looked heavy. My stomach tightened. He opened the briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of papers. They were stapled together. He slid them across the white tablecloth until they rested in front of me. "What is this?" I asked. "It's a formality," my father said. His voice was casual, too casual. "You know Grandpa's estate is being settled next week. Since you are the one who just graduated, the lawyers need some signatures to release the funds to the family trust." I looked down at the paper. I read the title in bold letters at the top. Deed of gift and transfer of assets. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. I turned the page. I started reading the legal text. Grandpa had taught me how to read this. I understood the words. "I, Alison Lawson, hereby voluntarily and irrevocably transfer, assign, and gift all rights, titles, and interests in any inheritance, trust, or assets bequeathed to me by Thomas Lawson, to the sole benefit of Vanessa Lawson." I stopped reading. I looked up. "This isn't a formality," I said slowly. "This is a transfer. You want me to give everything to Vanessa." My mother sighed, as if I was being difficult about passing the salt. "Alison, honey, it just makes sense. Look at the situation." "What situation?" I asked. "Vanessa is an artist," my mother said, gesturing to my sister. Vanessa sat up straighter, looking important. "She has big dreams. She wants to open a gallery in New York. She needs capital. She needs support. She's not cut out for the 9-5 grind like you are." "I see," I said. My voice was steady, but my heart was pounding against my ribs. "And what am I cut out for?" "You're practical," my father said. "You have a degree now. You can get a job. You can support yourself. You've always been the independent one." "So because I worked hard," I said, "I get nothing. And because she didn't work at all, she gets everything." "It's not about that," Vanessa chimed in. Her voice was high and whiny. "God, Alison, why do you always make everything a competition? I have expenses. I have a lifestyle to maintain. You're happy with simple things. You don't need Grandpa's money. You just lock it away in a bank account and never use it." "She needs it more," my father said, his voice hardening. "It's a family decision, Alison. We decided this is what's best for the family." "Who is we?" I asked. "Us," he said. He pointed around the table. Him, Mom, Vanessa, the three of them, against the one of me, just like always. "Grandpa left the estate to be distributed after I graduated," I said. "If he wanted Vanessa to have it, he would have left it to Vanessa." "Grandpa was old," my father snapped. "He was confused at the end. He didn't know what he was doing. This corrects his mistake. This keeps the money in the family where it belongs." "I am family," I said. The words hung in the air. My mother laughed. It was a short, cruel sound. Oh, Alison, don't be dramatic. Of course you're family, but you are the sturdy one. You are the one who can handle the real world. Vanessa is delicate. She needs protection. Sign the paper, my father ordered. He pulled a gold pen from his pocket and set it on top of the document. Stop wasting time. We have champagne waiting at home to celebrate. To celebrate Vanessa getting the money, not my graduation. I looked at the pen. I looked at the document. I looked at my sister's smug face. She was already smiling, imagining the shopping spree. I thought about the years of neglect. The missed science fairs, the forgotten birthdays, the way they looked through me. I picked up the pen. My father smiled. Good girl. I held the pen for a second, then I set it down, not on the paper, on the table. No, I said. The silence that followed was heavy. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the restaurant. Excuse me, my father asked. His voice dropped an octave. It was dangerous now. No, I repeated. I won't sign it. Alison, my mother hissed. Don't you dare do this. Don't you dare be selfish right now. It's not selfish to keep what is mine, I said. It's not yours, Vanessa shouted. A few people at nearby tables turned to look. It's ours, it's for the family. You're trying to steal my future. Your future? I looked at her. Vanessa, you dropped out of community college after one semester because you didn't like the parking lot. You've never held a job. You're 20 years old. Shut up, she screamed. That is enough. My father slammed his hand on the table. The silverware rattled. Alison, you are being an ungrateful brat. After everything we've done for you, we paid for your college, we fed you, we clothed you. You did the bare minimum required by law, I said. The truth just poured out of me. You fed me, but you never ate with me. You clothed me, but only in what Vanessa didn't want. You paid for college, but you're not even happy I graduated. You're just happy the waiting period is over. My father's face turned red. A vein in his forehead bulged. He wasn't used to me speaking back. He wasn't used to the shadow having a voice. You will sign this paper, he growled. Or you are no daughter of mine. I looked him in the eye. I didn't blink. I think that ship sailed a long time ago, Dad. He stared at me with pure hate. He looked down at the table. My diploma was sitting there, next to the bread basket. I had brought it in the leather folder to show them, but they hadn't opened it. He grabbed the folder. Is this what makes you think you're better than us? He sneered. This piece of paper. You think this makes you smart. You think this gives you power. Give that back, I said calmly. You want it. He opened the folder and ripped the diploma out. The thick, cream-colored paper crinkled in his fist. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his silver Zippo lighter. He flicked the lid open. The flame jumped up. Marcus, don't, my mother said, but she didn't reach out to stop him. She just watched. She needs to learn a lesson, he muttered. She needs to learn that without this family she is nothing. He held the flame to the corner of my degree. The flame caught instantly. The heavy paper turned black, then orange. The fire ate through my name first. Alison Lawson, gone in a second. Then it ate the university seal, then the date. I sat there, completely still. My hands were folded in my lap. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat, but I forced my face to remain a mask. Grandpa's face. I watched the smoke curl up toward the crystal chandelier. It smelled like burning chemicals and expensive perfume. My father dropped the burning paper onto the bread plate. It curled and withered, turning into a pile of fragile gray ash. He snapped the lighter shut and tossed it on the table. Clink. There, he said. He leaned back, crossing his arms. Now you have nothing. No degree, no family support, nothing, unless you sign that transfer. He looked at me, waiting for the break. He was waiting for the little girl who used to cry when they left her behind. He was waiting for the teenager who begged for attention. My mother was watching me too, her lips pressed into a thin line. Vanessa was smirking, but she looked a little nervous, like maybe this had gone too far. But inside me, something hadn't broken. Something had clicked into place. It was the final piece of the puzzle, the final proof. I didn't need to wonder anymore. I didn't need to hope that maybe, deep down, they loved me. They didn't. They saw me as an obstacle. They saw me as a bank account to be raided for their golden child. And because I knew that, I was free. I looked at the pile of ash, then I looked at my father. You're right, I said softly. He smirked. Finally. Give me the pen. No, I said. I mean, you're right that I have nothing here. I stood up. I moved slowly, deliberately. I picked up my purse. I picked up the leather folder that was now empty. Where do you think you're going? My mother demanded. Sit down, Alison, we are not finished. I am, I said, I am finished. I looked at Vanessa. You want the inheritance, Vanessa, you want the money. Duh, she rolled her eyes. Then you should have asked Grandpa why he spent so much time with me in the library, I said. You were too busy dancing. What is that supposed to mean? My father stood up now, looming over me. Sit down. No, I said. I turned my back on them. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. My legs felt heavy. My instinct was to obey, to apologize, to fix it, but I forced my feet to move. 1 step, 2 steps. If you walk out that door, my father shouted, his voice booming across the quiet restaurant, don't you dare come back, you are cut off, you hear me, cut off. I hear you, I said without turning around. I walked past the shocked waiters. I walked past the hostess who was pretending to look at her computer screen. I pushed open the heavy glass doors. The night air hit my face. It was cool and crisp. It smelled like rain and city traffic, not burnt paper. I walked to the curb. My car was parked down the street, an old Honda I had bought with my own money. They couldn't take that. I reached my car, got in and locked the doors. My hands were shaking now. The adrenaline was fading, leaving me cold. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I looked back at the restaurant. I could see them through the window. My father was gesturing wildly. My mother was drinking her wine fast. Vanessa was typing on her phone. They were still in there, trapped in their greed and their noise. I started the engine. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just put the car in drive and pulled away. I was homeless. I was disowned. My diploma was ash, but I had never felt more powerful. I drove to my Aunt Riley's house. She was my mother's sister, but they were nothing alike. Riley was a nurse. She lived in a small, cluttered house full of plants and cats. She was the black sheep of the family because she didn't marry a rich man. She opened the door in her bathrobe. One look at my face and she knew. Come in, she said. She didn't ask questions. She just made tea, strong tea with lots of sugar. I slept on her couch. It was lumpy, but it felt safe. When I woke up the next morning, my phone was almost vibrating off the coffee table. I had 47 notifications. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and picked up the phone. The barrage had started. Text from Vanessa, 8:02 a.m. You are so selfish. Mom is crying, Dad is furious. How could you ruin my future like that? I need that money for the gallery. You know I can't work a normal job. Text from Vanessa, 8:15 a.m. BTW, I'm moving into your room. It has better light. Dad said I could repaint it pink. Text from Dad, 8:30 a.m. Alison, you have 24 hours to come back and sign the papers. If you don't, I will call the police and report your car stolen. I paid for the insurance, so technically it's mine. Don't test me. Text from Mom, 9 a.m. You are tearing this family apart. After everything we did for you. Just sign the paper and we can forgive you. Vanessa is very sensitive, you know that. You hurt her feelings. Email from Dad, 9:15 a.m. Subject, urgent legal matter. Alison, stop acting like a child. Meet us at the house tonight. Bring the pen. I scrolled through the messages. It was a storm of entitlement. Not one person asked if I was okay. Not one person apologized for burning my diploma. Not one person cared about me. They only cared about the signature. They only cared about the asset. They were threatening me. They were manipulating me. Dad said I could repaint it pink. That one hurt the most, strangely. My room was the only place in that house that was mine, and they had given it away before my bed was even cold. I put the phone down. I looked around Aunt Riley's living room. A fat orange cat jumped onto my lap and purred. They're going crazy, aren't they? Aunt Riley asked from the kitchen doorway. She was holding a plate of toast. Yes, I said. They want me to sign over Grandpa's inheritance. Riley snorted. Of course they do. Marcus has been spending money he doesn't have for years. He's counting on that payout to cover his debts. I looked at her. He is. Oh yeah, Riley said, sitting down. Gambling debts, bad investments. He's leveraged up to his eyeballs. He needs Vanessa to get the money so he can manage it for her. It all made sense. They didn't just want to spoil Vanessa. They needed the money, and they knew I wouldn't give it to them. They knew I would be responsible. They knew I would say no, so they had to break me. I took a bite of toast. It tasted like freedom. I need to send an email, I said. To who? Riley asked. Your dad? No, I said. To Mr. Dalton. Grandpa's lawyer. I opened my laptop. I ignored the new texts coming in from Vanessa calling me a bitch. I opened a blank email. Dear Mr. Dalton, I hope this email finds you well. I have graduated as per the requirements of the trust. My family is pressuring me to sign away my rights. They have destroyed my diploma and threatened me. I am ready to execute the will. Please schedule the reading as soon as possible. Regards, Alison Lawson. I hit send. Then I blocked my father's number, then my mother's, then Vanessa's. The silence that followed was beautiful. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I was the one holding the cards. And next week, I was going to play them. The week that followed my walkout was the quietest week of my life, and it was exactly what I needed. I stayed with Aunt Riley in her small, cluttered bungalow. It was the opposite of my parents' house. My parents' house was like a museum, cold, white, and echoing. Everything had a place, and if you moved a pillow, my mother would shriek. Aunt Riley's house was warm. It smelled like dried herbs and cat food. There were piles of knitting on the chairs and half-read books on the tables. For the first 3 days, I didn't leave the house. I turned my phone off completely. I put it in a drawer in the kitchen and left it there. I knew what was happening on that screen. I knew my father was sending threats. I knew my mother was sending guilt trips. I knew Vanessa was sending insults. I didn't need to see it. Instead, I spent time with myself. It sounds simple, but I hadn't done that in years. I had spent my whole life reacting to them. I was always dodging their criticism, trying to fix their messes, or trying to be invisible so they wouldn't yell at me. Now there was no one to yell. I woke up when I wanted. I made coffee. I sat on the back porch and watched the birds. You look different, Aunt Riley said on Wednesday morning. She was watering her ferns. Different how? I asked. You don't look like a scared rabbit anymore, she said. You look settled. I feel numb, I admitted. Is that bad? No, she said. That's not numbness, honey. That's clarity. You finally see them for who they are. She was right. The distance gave me perspective. I sat at Riley's kitchen table with a notepad, just like Grandpa had taught me. I made 2 columns. Column A, what they gave me. Food/shelter tuition, paid from a fund Grandpa set up. I realized later, criticism anxiety. Column B, what they took from me. Self-esteem, my childhood, my credit. Dad had used my social security number for a utility bill once. I remembered my diploma, literally burned. The list was short, but it was heavy. I realized that my family didn't make a mistake at the dinner. They didn't just lose their temper. They revealed their strategy. They believed they owned me. They believed I was a resource, not a person. They thought that because I was quiet, I was weak. They thought that because I didn't fight back, I agreed with them. They were wrong. Grandpa's voice kept playing in my head. Silence is a strategy. I wasn't hiding here. I was waiting. I was letting them sweat. I was letting them think they had won, or that I was terrified and hiding in a hole. On Thursday, I finally turned my phone on. It buzzed for 5 minutes straight. Missed calls, voicemails, texts. I didn't read them. I deleted them all without looking. I opened my email. There was one message from Mr. Dalton, the attorney. Subject: reading of the last will and testament of Thomas Lawson. Dear Miss Lawson, per your request, and in accordance with your grandfather's instructions upon your graduation, the reading of the will is scheduled for Friday at 10 a.m. All beneficiaries have been notified. My stomach did a little flip. This was it. I replied, I will be there. That night, I ironed my clothes. I didn't have much with me, just the dress I had worn to graduation and a pair of slacks and a blouse I had in my overnight bag. I chose the slacks. They were black, sharp, and professional. I wasn't going there as their daughter. I was going there as a businesswoman. I stood in front of the mirror in Aunt Riley's guest room. I looked at my reflection. My eyes were dark, but they were steady. I pulled my hair back into a tight bun. You can do this, I whispered to the glass, for Grandpa. I wasn't afraid of the fallout anymore. I had already lost them. You can't lose something you never really had. The law office was in Santa Monica, in a tall glass building that overlooked the ocean. It smelled like lemon polish and money. I arrived at 9:50 a.m. I wanted to be early. When I walked into the reception area, my stomach dropped. They were already there. My father was pacing back and forth on the plush carpet. He was wearing his best navy suit, the one he wore when he was trying to close a deal. My mother was sitting on a sofa, flipping through a magazine aggressively. Vanessa was next to her, wearing big sunglasses indoors and scrolling on her phone. When the elevator doors opened and I stepped out, the room went silent. My father stopped pacing. He turned to me. His face was a mix of relief and anger. There you are, he barked. He walked right up to me, invading my personal space. Where the hell have you been? We called you 100 times. Do you know how worried your mother was? I looked at my mother. She didn't look worried. She looked annoyed. I've been busy, I said calmly. Busy doing what? Vanessa scoffed. sulking. "We don't have time for this," my father said, checking his watch. "Look, Allison, we're here, the lawyer is here. I assume you came to your senses." He lowered his voice, trying to sound like a reasonable father. "We brought the transfer papers again. We can sign them right after the reading. Mr. Dalton doesn't need to know the details. We just get the assets released to you, you sign them over to the family trust, and we all go home. We can even go to lunch, treat you to whatever you want." It was almost funny. He thought a lunch was enough to buy my life. "We'll see," I said. "Don't play games with me," he warned, his eyes narrowing. "You're walking on thin ice." Just then, the heavy oak double doors opened. Mr. Dalton stepped out. He was a tall, thin man with gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He had been Grandpa's lawyer for 40 years. He knew where all the bodies were buried. "Good morning," Mr. Dalton said. His voice was dry. He didn't smile. "Good morning, Arthur," my father said, putting on his fake charm. He reached out to shake Mr. Dalton's hand. "Good to see you. Let's get this wrapped up, shall we? We have a busy day." Mr. Dalton shook his hand briefly, then looked at me. His eyes softened just a fraction. "Allison, please come in." We filed into the conference room. It was huge. There was a long mahogany table. Mr. Dalton sat at the head. My parents and Vanessa sat on one side. I sat on the other side. Alone, my father looked at the seating arrangement and frowned. "Allison, sit over here with your family." "I'm fine here," I said. Mr. Dalton opened a thick file folder. The sound of the paper crinkling echoed in the room. "We are here to read the last will and testament of Thomas Lawson," Mr. Dalton began. As per his instructions, this reading was delayed until his granddaughter, Alison, completed her university education. Yes, we know," my mother waved her hand. "Let's get to the numbers." Mr. Dalton peered over his glasses at her. "Very well." He picked up a document. "I, Thomas Lawson, being of sound mind." He read through the standard legal jargon. My father was tapping his foot. Vanessa was chewing gum. Then Mr. Dalton paused. He looked up at my father, then at Vanessa, and finally at me. "Article 5, Distribution of Assets," he read. My father sat up straighter. This was it. The millions, the real estate. The construction company shares. Mr. Dalton read clearly and slowly. "To my son Marcus, I leave the sum of $1. I do this not out of oversight, but to ensure he cannot contest this while claiming he was forgotten." The room froze. My father blinked. "Excuse me," Mr. Dalton continued. "To my daughter-in-law, Elaine, I leave my collection of antique thimbles as she always enjoyed needlepoint, though she never finished a project." My mother gasped. "Thimbles. Is this a joke?" "To my granddaughter, Vanessa," Mr. Dalton read. Vanessa looked up, pulling her sunglasses down. "Finally, I leave the sum of $10,000 to be used for educational purposes only, paid directly to an accredited institution. If not used within 5 years, it returns to the estate." "10,000, Vanessa shrieked. "That won't even buy a car. Grandpa promised me the beach house." "He promised nothing of the sort in writing," Mr. Dalton said sharply. "This is insane." My father stood up, his face turning purple. "He was senile. Who gets the rest? Who gets the company, the accounts, the land?" Mr. Dalton turned the page. He looked at me. "To my granddaughter, Alison Lawson." My heart hammered against my ribs. "I leave the entirety of the Lawson estate. This includes the Lawson Construction Group, the portfolio of properties in Delmare and San Jose, the investment accounts held at Chase and Vanguard, and my personal residence." My father looked like he had been shot. He slumped back into his chair. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. My mother grabbed his arm. Marcus, do something." "It's a mistake," my father whispered. Then he yelled, "It's a mistake. You wrote it wrong, Arthur." "I wrote exactly what Thomas instructed," Mr. Dalton said calmly. "Allison," Vanessa stared at me across the table. Her eyes were wide with horror. "Allison gets it, but she's boring. She doesn't even know how to spend money. The valuation of the estate," Mr. Dalton continued, ignoring them, "is approximately $45 million. The number hung in the air. 45 million. I felt lightheaded. I knew Grandpa was rich. I didn't know he was that rich. "Allison," my father said. His voice changed instantly. It went from screaming to syrupy sweet in a nanosecond. He leaned over the table. "Allison, honey, wow, that's a lot of responsibility, too much for a young girl." He forced a smile. It was terrifying. "This is actually good," he stammered. "This keeps it simple. You can just sign everything over to me now like we planned. I'll manage the company. I'll handle the investments. You don't want that stress, sweetheart. You just want to live your life, right? He reached for the transfer papers he had brought. He pushed them toward me again. Just sign here and I'll take care of this mess Grandpa made. I looked at the papers, then I looked at Mr. Dalton. Is there anything else? I asked. Yes, Mr. Dalton said. There is a video supplement. Your grandfather insisted on it. He said he wanted to explain his decision personally. A video? My mother asked. Oh God. Mr. Dalton pressed a button on a remote. A screen lowered from the ceiling. The lights in the conference room dimmed. The screen flickered to life. It was grainy at first, then it focused. There he was. Grandpa. He was sitting in his leather chair in the library, the same library where we spent our Sundays. He looked older in the video than I remembered, a bit more frail, but his eyes were sharp. He was wearing his favorite cardigan. If you are watching this, Grandpa said from the screen, his voice filling the room, then I am gone, and Alison has graduated. My throat tightened. It was like he was in the room with us. Marcus, Grandpa said. He looked directly into the camera lens. My father flinched in his chair. I know what you are doing right now, Grandpa said. I know you are sitting there, red in the face, telling Alison she can't handle it. Telling her to sign it over to you, telling her she is weak. My father went pale. I watched you, Marcus, Grandpa continued. His voice was hard now. I watched you for 20 years. I watched you gamble away the startup capital I gave you. I watched you ignore your business to play golf. But mostly, I watched how you treated your daughters. My mother was shaking her head, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. Turn it off, she whispered. Arthur, turn it off. Leave it on, I said. My voice was the only steady thing in the room. I saw you treat Vanessa like a show pony, Grandpa said. You ruined that girl. You taught her that being pretty is a job. You taught her that money grows on trees. On the screen, Grandpa leaned forward. And I saw how you treated Alison. He paused. You treated her like furniture. You forgot her birthdays. You mocked her interests. You left her in the background. You thought because she was quiet, she was stupid. You thought because she didn't demand attention, she didn't deserve any. But you were wrong, Grandpa said. A small smile touched his lips. Alison is the only one of you with a backbone. She sat in this library with me and learned. She asked questions. She listened. She has integrity. She knows the value of $1 and the value of a promise. Marcus, Elaine, Grandpa said. You think you deserve my money because you share my last name. You don't. You are spendthrifts and narcissists. If I gave you this company, you would bankrupt it in a year. My father was staring at the table, his hands clenched into fists. Alison, Grandpa said. His eyes softened on the screen. It felt like he was looking right at me. I am leaving it all to you, not to burden you, but because I trust you. You are the builder. You are the future. Do not let them bully you. Do not let them guilt you. You owe them nothing. They burned your childhood, Grandpa said. Don't let them burn your future. The screen went black. The lights came back up. The silence in the room was absolute. It was heavy and suffocating. My father looked destroyed. He had been stripped naked in front of his own daughter and his lawyer. His arrogance was gone, replaced by a desperate, sweaty panic. Vanessa was crying, but it wasn't a fake cry this time. She looked scared. Daddy. What are we going to do? My father ignored her. He looked at me. His eyes were wide and pleading. Alison, he croaked. You heard him, he was angry. He didn't mean it. We're family. You can't leave us with nothing. The debts. I have debts, Ali, bad debts. I know, I said. They'll take the house, my mother sobbed. They'll take the cars. I know, I said again. I stood up. I felt 10 feet tall. I felt the weight of Grandpa's trust on my shoulders, and it didn't feel heavy. It felt like armor. I picked up the transfer papers my father had pushed toward me, the ones that would give everything to Vanessa. You brought a pen? I asked my father. He nodded eagerly, hope sparking in his eyes. Yes, right here. He fumbled in his pocket and handed me his gold pen, the same one he used to point at me when he yelled. I took the pen. I took the papers. I looked at them for a long moment. My father was holding his breath. My mother had stopped crying to watch. I slowly, deliberately, tore the papers in half. The sound of the ripping paper was loud in the quiet room. Rip. I put the two halves together and tore them again. Rip. Then I dropped the confetti onto the mahogany table. No, my father whispered. You burned my diploma, I said. My voice was calm, conversational. You tried to burn my identity. You thought I would always be the little girl who just wanted you to look at her. I leaned in close to him. I'm looking at you now, Dad, and I don't see a father. I see a bad investment. I turned to Mr. Dalton. Mr. Dalton, I accept the inheritance, and I would like to issue an eviction notice for the residents of my property in Delmare. They have 30 days to vacate. 30 days, my mother screamed. You're kicking us out. Where will we go? I don't know, I said, picking up my purse. But Vanessa is very talented. I'm sure she can sing for her supper. I turned and walked toward the door. Alison, my father roared. He scrambled up, knocking his chair over. You come back here, you ungrateful bitch, I made you. I stopped at the door. I didn't turn around. No, I said. Grandpa made me. You just ignored me until it was too late. I walked out of the conference room. I walked past the reception desk. I walked to the elevator. When the doors closed, blocking out the sound of my mother screaming, I finally let out a breath. I didn't smile. I didn't laugh. I just closed my eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Grandpa." Then I pressed the button for the lobby. I had a company to run. Walking out of that building was the longest walk of my life. My legs felt like jelly. My hands were shaking so hard I had to clench them into fists just to keep them steady. But I didn't stop. I walked straight through the marble lobby, past the security guard who nodded at me, and out into the bright California sun. The air felt different. It was the same air as an hour ago, but it tasted sharper, cleaner. It tasted like ownership. I got into my old Honda. I sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. I looked at the passenger seat. My purse was there. Inside it was my phone, which was currently vibrating every 3 seconds. I knew who it was. My father, my mother, Vanessa. They were probably still in the conference room, screaming at Mr. Dalton, or maybe they were running down the stairs right now to try and stop me. I picked up the phone. I didn't look at the messages. I just held down the power button. I watched the screen go black. Silence. I started the car and pulled out into traffic. I didn't go back to Aunt Riley's house immediately. I had somewhere else to go first. I drove to the headquarters of Lawson Construction. It was a brick building in an industrial park on the edge of town. I used to come here with Grandpa on Saturdays when I was little, before I realized my parents didn't want me. I parked in the visitor spot. I walked up to the front glass doors. The receptionist was a woman I didn't recognize. She looked up, bored. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm Alison Lawson," I said. "I'm here to see the operations manager." Her eyes widened. She sat up straight. She knew the name. Everyone in the building knew the name Lawson. And by now, news might have already trickled down that the owner had passed and the will was being read. "Oh," she stammered. "Miss Lawson, of course. Mr. Henderson is in his office. I'll call him." "Don't bother," I said. "I know the way." I walked back through the familiar hallways. It smelled like blueprints and old coffee. I saw men in hard hats walking by. I saw people typing at desks. This was mine. Grandpa had built this, brick by brick, deal by deal, and he had left it to me. Not because I was his blood, but because I was the only one who respected the work. I found Mr. Henderson's office. He was a gruff man who had worked for Grandpa for 30 years. He looked up when I knocked on the open door frame. "Alison?" he asked, taking off his reading glasses. "I heard the will reading was today." "It was," I said. I walked in and sat in the chair opposite him. I didn't slouch. I sat with my back straight, hands folded. "And?" he asked. He looked nervous. He probably thought my father was about to walk in and fire everyone to save money for a yacht. "It's me," I said simply. "Grandpa left the company to me. 100%. Mr. Henderson let out a long breath. His shoulders dropped 3 inches. He actually smiled. "Thank God," he said. Thomas was worried. He told me he was going to do it, but I was afraid he'd change his mind at the last minute because of family pressure. "He didn't," I said. "So," Mr. Henderson leaned forward. "What's the plan, boss? Do we sell? Do we liquidate?" "No," I said firmly. "We work. I want to see the financials for the Riverdale project. I know it's behind schedule, and I want a list of all current vendor contracts by Monday morning." Mr. Henderson looked at me with respect. Real respect. Not the fake kind my parents gave people they wanted money from. "You got it," he said. "Welcome home, Alison." I spent the next 4 hours in that office. I didn't look at my phone once. I buried myself in spreadsheets and contracts. It was the only way to keep my brain from exploding. The work was logical. The numbers added up. It was safe. When I finally left, the sun was setting. The sky was a bruised purple. I drove to Aunt Riley's house. Her car was in the driveway. I walked inside. Riley was sitting at the kitchen table. She had a bottle of wine open. She looked pale. "They called me," she said quietly. "I put my keys on the counter. I assumed they would. Your mother was hysterical, Riley said. She said you stole everything. She said you evicted them. She said you're a monster. Riley looked at me. Her eyes were searching my face. Is it true? She asked. Did you evict them? I poured myself a glass of water. My throat was dry. Yes, I said. I gave them 30 days. Alison, Riley whispered. That's harsh. They're your parents. They burned my diploma, Riley, I said. I turned to face her. At dinner, in a restaurant, Dad set it on fire. He wanted to burn my future so I would be forced to depend on him. He wanted to trap me. Riley's mouth fell open. He did what? He burned it, I repeated. And today, when the lawyer read the will, Dad didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't say congratulations. He tried to trick me into signing it all over to him right there at the table. He called me a bitch when I walked out. I took a sip of water. The glass felt cool in my hand. If I let them stay in that house, I said, they will never leave. They will drain my accounts. They will guilt me every single day. They will destroy this company just like they destroyed their own credit. Grandpa knew that. That's why he gave it to me. I looked at my aunt. I'm not doing this to be mean. I'm doing this to survive. If I don't cut the rope, they will pull me down with them. Riley stared at me for a long time. Then she nodded slowly. You're right, she said. You're absolutely right. Elaine has never taken responsibility for anything in her life. Maybe it's time she started. She stood up and hugged me. It was a tight, fierce hug. I'm proud of you, she said into my hair. That night I turned my phone back on. I had 112 missed calls, 300 texts. I didn't read them. I went to my settings. I selected change number. I spent the next hour setting up a new phone number. I sent the new number to Mr. Dalton, Mr. Henderson, and Aunt Riley. No one else. Then I laid in the dark on Riley's guest bed. I thought about my old room in the big house. The room Vanessa was planning to paint pink. It would be empty soon. The whole house would be empty. I felt a wave of sadness wash over me. It was a deep, aching grief. I wasn't grieving the loss of my parents, exactly. I was grieving the hope of them. I was grieving the fantasy that one day, if I was just good enough or smart enough, they would love me. That hope was dead. I had killed it today in that conference room. And as I lay there, listening to the crickets outside, I realized that killing that hope was the only way I could live. I was an orphan now, in every way that mattered. But I was a rich, capable, free orphan. I closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I didn't dream about running away. I was already there, 3 months later. I sat on the balcony of my apartment in San Jose. It wasn't a mansion. It was a 2-bedroom unit on the 4th floor of a quiet building. It had big windows and wood floors. It was 7 a.m. on a Saturday. The city was waking up below me. I held a mug of coffee in my hands. It was quiet. Inside, my apartment was clean. There were no piles of unpaid bills. There were no screaming matches. There was no one telling me I was taking up too much space. On the coffee table inside, there was a stack of files. The quarterly reports for Lawson Construction. We were up 12% since I took over. It turns out, when you stop siphoning money out of a company to pay for luxury vacations and gambling debts, the business actually thrives. I had fired 3 people in the first month. They were consultants my father had hired, friends of his who were being paid to do nothing. I had promoted the quiet ones, the ones who did the work. I took a sip of coffee. The steam warmed my face. I thought about my family. I knew where they were. Mr. Dalton kept tabs on them for me, just for legal reasons. My parents were living in a rented condo in Arizona. It was small. My father was working as a sales rep for a used car dealership. My mother was working part-time at a department store makeup counter. They were working. For the first time in decades, they had to earn their own money. Vanessa had moved in with a boyfriend I had never met. She was trying to become an influencer. I didn't follow her social media, but Mr. Dalton told me she posted a lot of angry videos about family betrayal. They had tried to sue me, of course. My father found a lawyer who worked out of a strip mall to challenge Grandpa's will. Mr. Dalton crushed them in a week. Grandpa's will was ironclad. The video evidence of my father's behavior helped. The judge threw the case out and ordered my father to pay legal fees. Since then, silence. Real silence. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, I felt a phantom limb pain. I missed having a mother to call. I missed having a sister to share clothes with. But then I remembered that I never really had those things. I had actors playing roles, and they were bad actors. I put my coffee cup down and walked inside. I went to the bookshelf in the living room. On the top shelf, in a simple black frame, was a picture of Grandpa. Next to it was a small glass jar. Inside the jar was a pile of gray ash. I had gone back to the restaurant the day after the confrontation. I had asked the busboy if he had cleared table 4. He said he had dumped the ashtray in the bin. I made him help me find it. It was just ash. But it was my ash. It was the remains of the diploma my father burned. I kept it to remind me. Every time I felt lonely, every time I wondered if I had been too hard on them, I looked at that jar. I remembered the fire. I remembered his face when he flicked the lighter. I remembered that he was willing to burn my hard work just to keep me small. I wasn't small anymore. My phone buzzed on the counter. It was a text from Aunt Riley. "Coming up for dinner tonight. I made lasagna." I smiled. "I'll be there." Bringing wine, I wasn't alone. I had Riley. I had Mr. Henderson and the crew at work. I had the few friends I had made in my building. I had myself. I walked into my bedroom to get dressed. I opened the closet. It was full of clothes I had bought with my own money. Clothes that fit me. Clothes that I liked. I put on a blazer. I looked in the mirror. The woman looking back at me wasn't the girl who hid in the library. She wasn't the girl who apologized for existing. She was Alison Lawson. CEO, granddaughter, survivor. I adjusted my collar. "You're doing good, kid," I whispered to my reflection. It was something Grandpa used to say. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. I had a meeting with a contractor at 9 o'clock and then lunch with Riley. My life was full. My life was busy. My life was mine. I walked out the door and locked it behind me. The click of the lock was the most satisfying sound in the world. It was the sound of safety, the sound of boundaries, the sound of peace. Grandpa was right all along. Strength isn't loud. Strength isn't screaming at a waiter or demanding an inheritance you didn't earn. Strength is quiet. Strength is the ability to walk away from the fire and build something new from the ashes. And I was building something beautiful.